You're already investing in real estate, you've probably asked yourself this question at some point. You've asked yourself that what can I do with 6 million naira in today's property market? And I'm not asking this because 6 million is the amount you necessarily invest in real estate if you want to make big money from real estate. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. For every serious real estate investor, 6 million naira should just be viewed as a unit of investment. I mean, understanding what your capital can actually accomplish when it is deployed into productive real estate. Let's start with the traditional way most investors think about land. You find a location that you believe will appreciate, you buy the land, you secure your title, and then you wait. Maybe the area develops, maybe infrastructure comes in, maybe demand increases, and hopefully 5 to 10 years down the line, you can sell the property for significantly more than you paid for it in the beginning. That's a perfectly legitimate way to build wealth through real estate. But here is where I think experienced investors need to start asking a different question. That question is, what is the asset doing for you while you're waiting? Because if you're deploying 20, 50, 100 million naira into real estate, you shouldn't only be thinking about how much the property could be worth in the future. You should also be thinking about whether your capital can be productive while you're holding the assets. You see, this is where the idea of productive real estate becomes interesting. So let's take 6 million naira as our basic unit. In this particular oil palm estate, 6 million naira gets you an acre. And an acre is 6 plots with a capacity for 60 oil palm trees. Now, if you're a serious investor, you don't necessarily stop at 1 acre. You can think in multiples: 3 acres, 5 acres, 10 acres. Because now you're no longer looking at this as someone simply buying a piece of land. You're looking at it as an investor allocating capital into income producing real estate assets. And this is exactly the distinction I want you to understand. The land itself remains real estate. It has its location, it has its title, it has its surrounding development and infrastructure that can influence its long-term value. But unlike a piece of land that simply sits there waiting for appreciation, this estate is being put into productive use. The oil palms are cultivated and professionally managed, and when plantation reaches production, 1 acre can generate between 2 to 4 million naira every year for the investor. Now, let's talk about what happens when you stop looking at 1 acre in isolation. Okay, if you're deploying 80 million naira into 3 acres, you're not simply saying, I own 3 more acres of land. You're building a larger position in an income producing real estate asset. And that's a much more interesting way to think about capital allocation. Because your objective as an investor should not be to accumulate square meters, plots, or acres. It should be to build a portfolio of assets that can appreciate, produce income, and compound your wealth over time. And this is where I think many property investors miss an important distinction. There's a difference between owning real estate and owning productive real estate. Both of them can appreciate, both of them can preserve capital, both of them can become more valuable over time. But productive real estate introduces another layer to the investment. The asset has something to do while you own it. And for an investor deploying substantial capital, that matters because let's say you have 30 million available for real estate. You could put that entire amount into traditional land banking and wait for years for appreciation. Or you could start asking, can I structure this capital around assets that have the potential to appreciate while also generating recurring income? And notice that I'm not saying appreciation doesn't matter. It absolutely does. In fact, that's one of the reasons productive real estate is very interesting. Because you're not necessarily choosing between capital appreciation and income. You're looking for a structure where the underlying real estate can continue to appreciate while the productive activity creates another source of revenue for you. Now, there's another reason I like using 6 million naira as the reference point because it gives you a very simple way to evaluate scale, right? 1 acre is 6 million, 3 acres is 18 million, 5 acres is 30 million, 10 acres is 60 million. Instead of looking at property price in isolation, you can begin to understand the relationship between capital, land, and potential income. And that's a much more useful way to look at a real estate investment. Some capital might be positioned for long-term appreciation. Some might be positioned for rental income. While some might be positioned for development. And some might be positioned in productive real estate where the land itself is being used to generate income. That's what building a diversified property portfolio looks like. So when you ask me, what can 6 million naira get in real estate? My answer isn't simply it can get you 1 acre. That's too small a way to think about it. Because if you're capable of investing 80 million, 30 million, 50 million, 100 million, you need to understand what each unit of capital is doing for you. And ultimately, that's what productive real estate is all about. Not owning more land just for the sake of owning land, but owning real estate that has the potential to work harder for your investment portfolio. So if you're looking at deploying substantial capital into real estate, don't just ask what the property will be worth when you eventually sell it.